All right. So here we are, right? LaGuardia Lounge, episode
Uh-huh.
6.
Episode 6.
Incredible, right?
Wow.
Mike Criscolo, Eduardo Garcia Luna, Brett Singer. Gentlemen, here we are. Pretty good stuff, I think, right?
Mhm.
Not
Wow.
bad. Not bad. 6 episodes in. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought?
I wouldn't have thought at
Yeah.
all.
Never.
Well, I would have, by the way. I would have.
No,
And
we're
I'm gonna
going
tell
strong. We're going strong.
and I'm gonna tell you why. Because one of the things is I knew when I said, "Hey, this would be a funny thing to do," was the 4 of us, whenever we're together, it's as if we've never missed a beat. That it is really kind of funny to see, that and in fact, prior to this, we hadn't seen each other or spoken. I mean, maybe a little scattered here and there, but certainly not much. And even, Brett and I don't see each other nearly as much as we used to. And I know you guys don't see each other, but for whatever reason, as I say, it's always been that way, I feel like.
Mhm.
And we now have had 4 guests, I guess this right. We've had Debbie,
Yes.
Deborah, little Debbie Fabian. Shout out, Lori Ildow, Cliff, and
Julie.
Julie. Right,
Yeah.
last week. And
Right.
every one of them, when you watch the videos and you listen to it, and I certainly felt it as I think you did, similarly, it was as if,
Yeah.
I found that the first reunion, which was maybe the 20th, I don't remember.
The first one
And
was 10.
was it? I didn't go to that one.
the
You
first
didn't
one
go
would
to
have been
the top?
5, I suspect, guys. You just
Right, but I didn't go to that
Yeah.
one.
There
I
was a
I
5?
resist.
I'm
I
sure, don't they
resisted.
all have
I
5?
absolutely resisted. I resisted Zoe's parties. I was like, no, I'm doing my own thing. I'm not interested. And then I went to reunion. I said, oh my God, this is really nice. We have a shared experience. There's stuff that we went through that nobody else understands. And it was really
Yeah.
kind of great.
It was, and I'd say this is my thought though on it is that I, was a little bit, I don't know. I guess I was surprised a little bit. I don't know why. I mean, I knew that there would be good commonality, but I have been very taken aback and moved and certainly enjoyed the whole thing. But I have the level of which everybody has kind of connected and been able to kind of hit the ground running, so to speak. So
Yeah.
the first thing I wanted to ask you guys, since it's us, the original fearsome foursome, I wanted to get, and Mike, I'm going to start with you. Is what was your first, what of all that we've done 6 episodes, well, 5 episodes now? What's the biggest takeaway for you?
Honestly, the biggest takeaway is that it doesn't matter how much time passes between, like you said, between the last time we all saw or spoke to each other, or when's the last time, this person, saw me or even thought about me. It's like there's not really a passage of time there. It's like
No.
we have enough shared common points of history and just kind of like cultural reference to just be able to walk into a conversation with everyone we've talked to so far and just kind of be like, yeah, we can skip the part where it's like, what have you been doing for the last 40 years? I kind of know what you've been doing for the last, few decades. How are things? And we can just, dispense with all that and get right to it. Kind of like the way we all used to when we were in school together all the time.
I have the sense, by the way, the 3 people listening to this program also feel the same way. And more importantly, and thank you,
Right.
the 3 of you, appreciate you very much. But in fact, we've been doing clips, and I've been feeling a little sheepish about overloading the LaGuardia Facebook page, and I don't really do that much social media. So if you go to my social media page, the first like 5 things are going to be us clipping, but commenting on social media.
Yeah.
And I know we've all reached out to people, and they all, by the way, are aware that we're doing it. Like, I haven't really spoken to anybody that wasn't already kind of like, yeah, I saw that. And yeah, that sounds good. So
I
go.
think the other takeaway I have is that I'm astounded at how much everybody remembers about high school. I thought I remembered a lot of stuff about high school. It turns out my memory is fucking shit compared to the 3 of you,
Sure.
compared to everyone we have talked to. Like, my memory is garbage, and I had no idea until these past few weeks.
You're right. We have the hive mind. You're getting the hive
Incredible.
mind together.
Absolutely.
No, between all of us, we remember everything. I mean, for God's sake, Deborah Fader remembered, we are Mr. Trier's class and we know how to whoosh.
I had
mean,
forgotten.
yeah.
As soon
I
as
had
you said it,
completely
I remembered.
forgotten that. And she said it and it went right back into my head.
It's like you need that spark and it comes back.
Right. The one that jumped out at me was I didn't remember at all that Eddie and I had done Enter Laughing, and in fact, even now I remember being said, but I remember vividly Escal, which obviously Eddie really remembered, was I remember asking. Now I don't remember him lacing into you like you were an idiot. I remember him getting up and making an incredibly salient acting point.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but
Abs
I remember that. I remember that. I think Eddie and I were talking about it offline. I remembered it when I direct. I remember it when I'm acting. I remember it be alive on stage. It was maybe one of the greatest acting lessons of all time. Is you're washing dishes, fucking
Yeah.
walk the dishes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
When we were in college, we used to build sets. I always made sure that the sink would run and that the refrigerator had things in it, you know, that I would not allow people not to, you
Yeah.
know.
Moody
Right.
went off on me once. I was doing a sense memory exercise, and I did it so badly, and he just laid into me, and I remember your face, Dan. I started doing it, and you just had this look on your face like, "Oh my god, he's doing it so badly." And I knew immediately that I had completely fucked it up.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was supposed to be doing, but I was doing it completely wrong. Like, I wasn't doing it. I mean, whatever you say
Whatever it
about
was.
this method, you're supposed to really be doing it. That's the point. And I was not doing that. And Moody completely picked up on it, and he just laid into me.
What about you, Ed? Any big takeaways?
That's interesting. Yeah, I was not expecting this question.
No, I know. Well, I'm a fan of the gotchas.
Right.
I actually, if I do it, there are panels. You can Google it. I once got a panelist to cry, not in a mean way. I said to her, I swear to God, before the thing, we were talking about her father, Athena Finger, who is Bill Finger's granddaughter.
Oh my
And Bill Finger
God.
was the guy who was who was the co-creator of Batman, and
Okay.
he was basically stolen from for a long time. Bob Kane put his own name on it, whatever,
Yeah.
and it was a very long time. I mean, he was long dead, and in fact, her father was dead. She's the living heir when this thing finally worked itself out.
Hmm.
Bronx people, by the way, DeWitt Clinton, both of them, Bob
Ah,
Kane
DeWitt
and
Clinton.
Bill Finger.
Yeah.
But
I
but in
remember.
any event, I said to her before, I said, I've got some gotcha questions for you.
I
And
mean,
go ahead.
I guess my biggest takeaway would be, yeah, I mean, just that the way we reconnect so quickly, even though we haven't seen, I mean, I haven't seen or really, I talked to Lori once a couple years ago because she had a back issue and she was getting spinal fusion or something.
Oh,
But
wow.
I mean, other than that, like no communication, but you see these people now and it's just like, and I wonder, I would answer the question with a question in a way because I want to know what you guys think about. Is it because we spent those years together in that place that make it so now? Or could we have been in any high school and still had that kind of bond?
That's an interesting question. What I will say is I don't have this kind of bond with people from college.
No?
Not at all.
That's an interesting
I
comment.
had no interest in going to my college reunion.
Hmm.
I've been back. I taught a class there, so I went back to teach, but they were paying me. So it was, a little, it's not really
A
fair.
little different.
But like it was actually my college crush reached out to me and she said, "Oh, you should come to reunion. You should come to reunion." And I was like, I thought about it and I was like, I don't know anybody. Like most of my friends were not in that class. I didn't really feel any great desire to go. I feel much more connected to my high school than I do. The high school was a very intense period, and that was a really, I mean, it's like who was it who said you tell people stories and they don't believe you?
Yeah.
I forget.
Everybody said that.
There you go. I mean,
I'm-
I'm reading this great book now called Fortress of Solitude by Jonathan Lethem, and it's about Brooklyn in the 70s. And it's a little earlier than us, but it's the same kind of stuff. New York was absolutely insane at that time.
Yeah.
New York was crazy, and LaGuardia was even crazier. Like there was just Kirk was
Yeah.
breaking windows for God's sake. I mean, Eddie was
He wasn't the
breaking
only one.
mirrors.
Yeah.
Derek made Hank fly. I mean, Hank flew through the door, and Derek is pounding on it. We're like, Derek, get off of Hank, get off of Hank. He fucked Rosie. Fuck.
So, Brett,
It was total chaos.
you make a good point there. I mean, I definitely think, it's because we had the experience at that place at that time. Because, I don't have the same kind of bond uh, with the people I went to college with either. And I wanted to have that kind of bond with them because I thought they were all super cool. I really liked them all a lot, and I
Huh.
wanted that. But as I am listening to this conversation, I am realizing, yeah, we were going to high school in New York in a very intense, it was an intense situation in an intense period in that city.
Yeah.
And we were all native New Yorkers together. And then I tried to kind of like have that same intense bonding experience with people from college who were not from New York,
Yeah.
didn't have that same experience with me, even though
Interesting.
we were all in college in New York together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the same.
Hmm.
And part of the reason it wasn't the same is because I didn't adjust. When I saw that they were not completely responding to what I was putting out, it didn't, occur to me once to be like, oh, maybe I should dial it back a little.
Why? Why would you do that?
Why?
It's
But
ridiculous.
it's
The
funny.
thing is-
Like the bond is so strong. The thing that people always ask me when I talk about LaGuardia people and my friends is they go, "My God, you still talk to people from high school? Why the fuck would you do that? I couldn't wait to get away from all those
That's
people and
funny,
get the fuck
yeah.
out of high school." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, that wasn't us at all."
Well, first of all, I say this a lot in the world is, are we us or are we us in somebody else's position? You know what I mean? So you couldn't have the collection of people that we had there in Michigan, somewhere else, insert other
No.
place.
No,
You
not at
just
all.
wouldn't. You wouldn't have that group of people. If
Yeah.
you took that group of people and you put them all in Ohio, would it be the same? Now, of course, the answer is probably not, because the acting classes was a real thing. You were there for 2 or 3 hours. We were doing acting or dancing or whatever it was. And I suspect, which I want to get into when we get more guests, I suspect the acting people more so. I always have that sense, and I know that some people maybe outside of that department can talk about it. There
Yeah.
was something about the drama department.
Well,
And
because yeah, of course, we went through these major emotional exercises together, cried in front of each other. It wasn't, we weren't just crying about our boyfriends and girlfriends after school, and that was that bond. This was during something that we're working on, with this intensity, and we're sharing these really vulnerable moments. I mean, I heard some crazy stories in Cap's class. We did that. I think, yeah, it had to be Capoletti's class. Where like he shut all the lights off and just had like kind of a spotlight, and each person had to go up and close their eyes and talk to someone.
Oh yeah,
Do you remember that? It
I
was,
like barely remember that. but
dude,
yeah.
it was so intense. Jenny Diamonds terrified me.
What did she
Um,
say? Can you say it? Is
no,
it too personal? Can you even
yeah, it's
say
not
it?
my story to tell. I mean,
Oh
if
my
she
God. I mean,
wants to
I can't
tell
even
that, that's a
imagine.
totally different story. Gina Torrigo's was super personal. I mean, there
well,
was,
you were encouraged. I assume most people's were super personal.
yeah, of
I
course,
assume yours was super personal.
Right.
You were encouraged to do it. And by the way, for what it's worth, it was a time and a place where you were encouraged to do it. And because most people did it, almost everybody did it.
Yeah,
And
'cause it felt safe.
if you
Yeah.
didn't do it, you stuck out as kind of outside, that there,
Right.
that almost everybody was exposing themselves
Yeah.
in every way. And if you didn't embrace that level of whatever bohemia, then, and there were some kids that didn't,
Right.
by the way, without being crazy, is most of those kids who didn't do that were usually much more reserved. They were, the less talented kids for sure, but they came from religious homes. There were, whatever it was, there was something very closed off about them, because you were in a situation where 70 or 80% of the class was going to get up there, and
Yeah.
if they'd gotten raped, they were going to say it. If somebody fucking died on them, they were going to say it. That they were out there saying big things
Yeah.
because we were encouraged to do it. And
We all
and suddenly you did it, so now I have to do it too.
We
Yeah.
also had something that everyone was very jealous of. We had the block. We
Yeah.
had 2 or 3 hours of straight class.
Oh yeah.
The music majors had to go to saxophone class, and then they went to math, and then they went to French, and then they
Oh,
went
really?
back to saxophone.
We were the
Oh
only
yeah,
ones.
we were
The
the only
dance
one.
kids did
Everyone
too.
was
The
very
dance kids did too.
the dance kids also had a block, but they
Okay.
weren't baring their souls, so it was a little
Yeah.
less intense. Um,
But I
but
have the
the
sense they're pretty close. I actually have the sense that the dance kids,
A lot of the dance majors I see a really tight bond.
the younger kids, when I can see, by the way, because social media is that way, that we're all now looking a little closer. There's a couple of generic LaGuardia whatevers, and there's been a lot of, they were dancing apparently last year doing the Fame dance and
Oh,
something. It was all over the place. And so anyway, and so you know how it is. It's the algorithm's been showing me things.
yeah.
Is that I have the sense that those kids are very fucking close to each other. They just have that feel.
Yeah.
I will also say one thing that I have noticed, and it's like at every place where I have gone to like acting class or theater school, high school, college, whatever,
Hmm.
um, theater people like bond together that way.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
no matter what. It doesn't matter where they went to school, what kind of experience they had while they were there. Like I've just noticed that like theater people
Yeah, of
bond together
course.
like that long
Sure.
term,
Yep.
forever. Like there are a bunch of people I knew from all the different places I went to college who are still like super tight like this with each other. Just like all the different factions of people we went to high school with, no matter what department they were in, and they're very tight with each other, but especially the theater people, the acting people, the directing people. We just kind of band together like for
Yeah.
life that way.
I find, by the way, you're absolutely correct. Though I will say that as they get older, and if you're really in the arts and you're in production, they bond with each other over the course of the show. That they're all so
Hmm.
deeply in love with each other, and then they disappear on one another. It's a much bigger
Oh
pool,
yeah.
and it's a much larger life. Whereas I think, and I've said this before, I think that Facebook is a game changer on this. I mean, it's not a perfect analogy, but I think everybody knows, the statistic on infidelities, people getting back together with their high school girlfriends and boyfriends, and it was one of the earliest spikes that happened during Facebook. It was a very tangible thing where all of a sudden it's like, well, why is that happening? Well, because people are rediscovering their ex high school, and college and
Right.
whatever.
Sure.
So but the only point I'm making is that suddenly there everybody was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there we all were, and our Facebook group, and like we're going to ultimately move out and start hopefully talking to people who are not from that group, and I don't think we'll find the same kind of rah rah that
Hmm.
we're enjoying right now.
Who knows?
um
Maybe.
I wonder. You never
I
know.
don't know, because I gotta tell you, we've had 4 guests and I was so happy to see all of them, that I really was, that it was just fun and it was exciting and it was like we didn't miss a beat, and
Uh,
Lori, Debbie, Julie, stuff, it's good. It's really good. Whereas, whatever, we bring in some people, it's fine. I like them too, but but it's not quite the same, it's not, which
Cliff
is
was
why I thought it
fun.
was valuable.
Don't discount Cliff. Cliff was pretty fun.
I didn't say Cliff. I said these
Right.
other people. Other people. I counted Cliff with us. I
Oh,
think, as
okay.
I'm saying, is
Yeah,
that
you
that's
don't.
why. Yeah, that's why I thought it was a value to start this way. Because,
Yeah.
by the way, I think it's been engaging for us for sure, and I
Yeah.
do think it's made for engaging conversations.
Agreed.
That generally
yeah.
speaking, I don't think I'm just being. I mean, anybody who's had anybody who's listened has said to me that was really kind of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And I think if we could
Question back thing has seemed to really interest people.
say that again,
The question back thing has seemed to
right?
really interest people. So
Oh,
that's something,
sure.
we may want to
Go ahead.
keep in mind,
Yeah.
So what is everybody, this is since you asked what came out of all of these weeks, right, so far, the other thing
Right.
that came to me is the question came up a couple times now, but we should probably, all of us answer, like, what are we doing now? What's everybody up to? Because we really haven't talked about that.
Do we have to talk about that?
I'm rich and
You can go
famous.
last.
No, you're right. We should do that
Oh,
because
you know what it
we
is?
should do
Right
that.
now, I'm scratching my nuts.
Well, I couldn't help but think about it too, because I'm listening to Lori's on the way home today, and she asked a question that Brett and I couldn't hear, which was, what kept us in the game? How are we
Oh
still
yeah.
in the game after all these years? And Brett gave his answer, producing and getting his way back as
Yeah.
press agent and all that type of stuff, right? And I pointed to you, obviously. You're the one who kept me in the game all those years, or else I would have been way
I did nothing. You kept yourself in it, man.
But leading from there, like, what's everybody doing now? It's a great question. Like, what's Daniel Hort doing now? Nobody knows. We know he was in comics. We know he
Right.
was some Comic-Con stuff. But like, what's he really doing?
Right. Well, scratching my nuts. No. No. So let's see. What am I doing? Well, next week I'll be in Miami for Miami Swim Week. So that's fun. I produce shows. I do a bunch of different art events. Let me back up. I guess I'll back up. So my family owned a printing business. Really was our core business. We had
Who's the name?
Enterprise Press.
Enterprise Press.
And we had a plant down in the Lower West Village the entire time we were in high school.
Oh shit!
That business was founded by my great-grandfather in 1915.
Fucking
So it wasn't in that building at the time, but they were in that building. I think, I don't remember exactly, like from 74, 75. They moved into that building, and we were there until 2007 or so. So I had gone to Carnegie Mellon, didn't like it very much. And then I transferred over to Brandeis, where I liked it pretty well. And I actually do have a decent amount of friends that I still see and speak to, though I don't think they would be as clever and as funny on a podcast as you gentlemen. But nevertheless. And anyway, and when we got out of college, I think Brett had said at one of the episodes that we produced some shows, and you guys were in them, and we did that, and that was fun and interesting. And then whatever, I was married and I had a kid, and well, it just, and it was time. There was a variety. The printing industry was failing is part of it. So we had a lot of family. I had a brother, I had some cousins. It was a pretty big business. And it was
I
just
worked for a printing company, but on the appellate area.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Fremont Payne was the name.
Right.
Fremont Payne. And they made all like the books for court and everything down.
Right. No, totally.
Oh, wow.
That, a lot of those places, I mean, that was beginning to happen. That kind of work was, of course, going to copy centers that were existing. And so you were losing that. We did mostly high-end color and what we call, high-end service. So in the 80s, when we were in high school, I used to work there in the summers and, whatever. Sometimes I would go down and deal with some things and whatever it was. And at that time we were, the fashion industry was exploding, and they were moving into, as you say, catalogs, and they were beginning to start to consolidate and become, where the brand was no longer, the thing. They had some parent company that was licensing. So all those agreements, Calvin Klein was a very early adopter of that. So when I first started working in the mid 90s full time, I was mostly doing fashion, and I did some arts organizations, mostly high-end color, but I was working with a lot of the fashion houses. So at that time, if Andrew Feza, Calvin Klein, Joseph Abboud. I worked with Kate Spade for many years.
Oh shit.
And all of that. And we did their catalogs and, whatever, in their collateral. Yes, sir.
Rewind now. Did you want to work in the family business?
Well, if I had become Matthew Broderick, or I would have had other plans.
Gotcha.
But see,
Well, the little plan was not to work.
I'm going to weigh in here.
Wow.
I'm going to weigh in here because when Dan decided to do it, I was against it.
Oh, really?
Not that it was up to me.
Wait,
Not
when
that
he
it was up to
decided-
me. I
Oh.
didn't have anything to do with it, but he said, "I'm going to do this," and I said, "I really wish you wouldn't do that," because we were doing stuff,
You were
and
doing
it was
stuff.
fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like we were close to a Broadway show. Like, we were hardly successful.
Right? Off.
We did some things. I mean, it was fine. It led to a career for me. I mean, it led doing press for Young Artist Group led to the grand success that was Brett Singer and Associates, LLC. But like
That was a very
getting pictures in
impressive
the
achievement, though.
getting Milo's picture in the paper, for backstage, made me realize that was something people would pay me for, and so I did it.
Yeah.
But I was not thrilled when Dan went to. I understood why. There was a lot of family pressure.
Is that what it was?
Partly, I'm a fan of doing things that work. And, you know, it was probably about that time. There was some family pressure. I don't want to overstate that because that, you know, it wasn't entirely, it was time. The real thing was is that there were the business, the longer story short, in the fullest of time, was the business was sold to a corporate conglomerate, and then my father and brother and I got back into it and toiled with it for many years. But the industry was really in free fall, and it just was going down really fast. And so at the time that I did it, there was we were in the throes of getting the company ready to be sold, and it just needed a lot of hands at that time. So it was the right moment more than pressure. It was just like, if you're going to do it, this is the time to do it. Now is the moment to deal with it. So I did. And I actually really liked it. I wanted to go do it, and I really wanted to do it. And so for many years, it was fun. I was dealing with a lot of major shit.
Yeah.
I did the New York City
Sounds like it.
Marathon for, I don't know, 20 years. I did all their corporate
Wow.
communications. I did all this, you know, a lot of different types of stuff. And in the early years, I was treated better, that we were doing more agency style work. And I was a person that, you know, if I was in the office, and not that Calvin Klein was going to call me on the phone, but if he saw me in the elevator, he knew who I was,
Oh shit.
which is sort of fun. Sure, they
Yeah.
all did. I was there. I was there all the time, you
Yeah.
know, and we were working, and it mattered. We were making catalogs. We were doing high-end color. You know, in those days, it wasn't like you could look at it on the computer. I could email it to you. Somebody had to physically take it and then go sit there, and then they would scribble it and say, it's too red, too blue, too whatever. And you
Yeah.
had to either fix it or convince them that it wasn't too red or too blue or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, and deal with it. And then you go back, and then you come back again. You know, that it was really I mean, obviously the computers killed that business, and fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, to jump now is that's basically over a 25-year period. I was working in a business that largely, for more than half of that, was in throes of decline, and wasn't really going to. So it really started to suck by the end. That
Yeah.
it was really not working out.
That's 2000 what?
2000, and I moved on fully a little before COVID, so probably 2017, 2018. But I hung on way too long. I mean, it was going down like everything. It was going down since 9/11 in some respects, and in any event. So anyway, at that point, I was dealing with a lot of events. Like I said, I did big arts organizations, so I was working with almost all of the major Metropolitan Museum of Art, almost all of Lincoln Center. We were involved with Jazz at Lincoln Centers, which are still now there. That whole design with the blue and the square, and, you know, when they moved to the Rose Center, we were involved with that. All their collateral, did signage, you know, and it was grown up business. It was big business. It was interesting business. That was fine. But increasingly, you know, like everything, the price points were dropping dramatically. We were in a business model where what we had was me. That's what you had. That was the fucking difference between me and Kinko's, was that
Right.
I was really there. Now, prior, in my early years, there were no Kinko's. So you couldn't do what we were doing. You just couldn't. You want a freaking catalog that's gold, you know, that's colorful and has a whatever. This is it. This is what it costs. The person you're dealing with knows everything about what you have to go through and what it costs. And most of my career, that knowledge eroded. The technology came in. So everybody wanted, for a long time, which was very painful, they wanted, you know, what they can now get by pushing a button 10 years before you could really get it, before you're pushing a button. And suddenly, I mean, actually, you know, it's funny in terms of, I told it the other day, the Sting story is, you know, they were really assholes, that I was really working pretty hard for them for nothing. At that time, I was selling millions of dollars in printing. Their Christmas cards and their stationery wasn't where I thought it was funny. And that was part of the deal. They came from a bigger agency client. So a little bit, I was dealing with much bigger
And it's
customer.
also kind of cool because it's Sting.
It's perfectly cool because,
Of course.
but the point is the reason they were dealing with me was because I could get in my car and and not only that, I could stand in their lobby. My father has a very funny, similar story with Nancy Sinatra and her bedroom.
Oh,
You know, and part of it by the way, I worked with the Church of Scientology for years. They were a huge client of mine.
really?
Yeah, well, everybody,
was
you know,
troubling.
in those situations,
Lots of
That I
printing.
had some real
Wow.
issues
Huge.
with that.
millions of dollars. They were a
Troubling.
huge
Very
client.
troubling.
They were a huge client. But and by the way, I took care of them. I will not say more. But in any
Right.
event, it all went down really fast. That's the point. And so I had been doing a lot of events, and one of a friend of Brett and mine's actually from high school runs the Scope Art Fair, the International Art Fair, which is one of the largest international art fairs in the world. Huge.
Huh.
And, he had been a customer, whatever. He and I had done some businesses together. He ran a shitty little gallery. I mean, we'd known each other since junior high and whatever. And now suddenly he was, by the way, 15 years into running the Scope Art Fair, suddenly one of the largest international art fairs. He was way out in front of all of that type of stuff. And a very close friend. And we always worked together. So I was really, we're very close friends. So he knew that I wasn't happy and that it wasn't really working out for me. And he, which I give him credit for, was aware enough of what I had to deal with. Plus, because he was also a pretty big customer for a long time. And for a long time, we were giving him, I like to think one of the reasons that fair is as big as it is because we were doing their collateral when he was a nobody, nothing little shitty gallery. He was getting Calvin Klein's printers, whatever. And it helped. And we were doing MoMA. We were doing huge stuff. So it was, the quality was there. But in any event, like I said, he knew. So I was banging around. We started to do, scannable codes. I know nowadays it doesn't, you have your thing that you go to the airport, you do it, but there was a moment where you didn't do that. It started, by the way, we would mail them letters. I did New York City Marathon. The New York City Marathon used to have about 12 mailed communications over the course of a year to the 42,000, 38,000, whatever it is, participants that ran in it, plus whatever the excess of people that say they're going to run in it, that don't run in it, people who apply and whatever. And I went through major brand changing with them as well. They went through, when I started with them, they were like that red and blue little circle with a New York skyline. And then we went to the little runners and all that kind of stuff. And, at those days, those kinds of major identity changes were huge. And the printers were involved, especially me, because I was deep into it. We did a lot of marketing, designing, management, agency. We were a little bit more involved. So we were deeply involved in what colors are we picking? What things are we doing? And those big decisions, obviously you would, the president would come in and talk to you, and they were usually pretty friendly. But as I say, it began to kind of go down. So we were doing these scannable cards for.
Do you mean is it like a QR code? What's a scannable
It was a QR
card?
code. Well, it was a barcode, and then it turned to a QR code.
Right.
But and at first it was those little guns like you see in the supermarket, and they didn't fucking work. It was a pain in the ass. And by the way, you would scan it, and then what? Now what? Right? And so anyway, we were doing it. And, and in those early, the first 2 or 3 years, I had to go to these events and stand there for a day or two and just, supervise and whatever and iron out whatever the kinks were. And then, whatever, it would get going, and then I didn't have that much to do. And I'd be wandering around these major international art fairs and huge art week, like Art Basel. I don't know if anybody's ever been, but it's, it's like 30 shows. It's huge, huge. Not, you couldn't see it in the week. It's that much stuff. So anyway, I started to realize that I was, I was teaching my customers how to not need me, because it didn't take a genius to see where it was going. And the harder I was working, the less they were paying me. And part of the problem really was, which again comes back a little bit to the Sting story, is I don't know if it was quite clear in that story, they wanted me to just eat it. They wanted me to reprint it and just eat it for them. And it wasn't my fault at all. And that was kind of in the old days when you were, you had real money and jobs. I wasn't going to tell them to fuck off over their Christmas card. I was just going to reprint it because they were a huge client. They began to erode, and they didn't have that kind of business to give you the money necessary to just fix whatever the fucking problems were. And that was a bad learning curve. I'm not alone in this. I think the entire industry. In fact, I do consulting now. I talk to people about it, and nobody ever listens to me. But no industry reacts fast enough.
That's on
Is
his
it
business card, by the way. Nobody ever listens to me.
Yeah. Well, no, well, but nobody reacts fast enough. They don't, whatever it is that you're downsizing because the technology. You used to have 20 people in the printing industry. I mean, we had 100 people, and then suddenly you only needed 5, and so we went down to 30, and then we were 25, and in the meanwhile, you didn't need that many, and you just couldn't move fast enough to keep up with it. Coupled with the fact that I really had customers that I'd worked with for 20 plus years that were basically saying, "Dan, eat this. Dan, do that. Dan, whatever," and their profit margins were going so far the other way. By the way, just the sheer volume of what they were doing was just going down. So it was clear the writing was on the wall. I mean, there are no of our size and there are none. In fact, the only guys that are left even remotely are people that maneuvered into internet and more content stuff or large format and digital, but our breed was gone. And my father really did it, though I think I helped as best as I could at any rate, was that we sold our company. It was going down the fucking toilet. We sold to a large corporation, and that was that. And that was how we solved some things. However, I then went on to work with my father and brother for another 20 plus years and just was sort of dealing with the erosion that I'm talking about. Anyway, I thought to myself as I'm sitting there at these art fairs, events, this is probably 19, actually not 19, it's 2012, 2010. And these events are really taking off. And I've been in the epicenter of that, the art scene particularly. I was very involved in these art fairs, and they had just Art Basel. I mean, I was at the first and the earliest Art Basels because they just, and it's grown like you can't even fucking believe. And at that time I was working with a lot of different, the sort of burgeoning fair system. There aren't really very many of them left, and whatever's left of those are weird. They're just but they were the early events, so it was clearly coming. So I thought to myself, well, I should get into this, and that'll be the business that I move into. And so I had started with comic books because I was a fan of I was always a comic book collector and a reader and all that kind of stuff. And I had been going to these art fairs for a long time, and I was wandering around, and I realized that that nobody was really showing original comic art at that time. And so that I just perceived, which I think was that the original art market in comic books and sci-fi and fantasy, that kind of illustration, those types of things, was undervalued
Oh yeah.
because it was profit. It was they weren't that expensive in this. You're looking at some no-name painter that's asking for $20,000, and in the meanwhile, it's you've got major comic book artists that was in Superman, and it's like for $500, $700. So I started working with them. That was how I got to that. And from there, I just built out a business. I got involved in an art fair in the Caribbean. We do in Barbados. We're going into our 17th, 18th year. Just finished in March. I think it was 16. So I think we're going into 17 years there. I do runway shows. I'll be in Miami next week. I think hopefully we're gonna have some guests on from that, and maybe even do some interviewing poolside. So I do runway shows as well. I work with a streaming network that does the Miss USA pageant, and so we're gonna have a lot of beauty queens and whatever and, down there at Swim Week, and then we'll be at the Miss USA pageant is moving to Miami. So that'll be in August. And so I do that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I do events now, and it's sort of a side hustle that has sort of gone awry. And and we'll see, the funny thing is I've been so worked for myself for my entire life. I'm not sure I'm employable. Like I actually really, I mean, I would do it. By the way, if somebody told me what to do, I follow orders pretty good. I think I'd be a great employee actually, but I'm not sure anybody would ever hire me. And I don't have the patience to find out.
You're just
You
too
know?
much of a boss.
I think you're probably sitting pretty, Dan.
You should see my bank account.
Oh well, you're not alone
I
there.
wonder about that too. Like if I suddenly had to the jobs I used to do
Mm.
are gone. Like I used to do
Yeah.
telemarketing. That was my default survival job.
Yeah.
It's not that it's completely gone, but it's not the way it used to be. Like, there used to be, you open the Village Voice, the same 7 companies would be hiring. You could walk in. If you could string a sentence together, they'd give you a phone.
Right.
Like when my daughter was first looking for a job, I said, "Go do some telemarketing." She's like, "Dad, it's not 1985." You know? And I
Right.
was like, "I guess you're right. It's not the same thing." It's harder. Or like, box office. I did box office for 2 years. I don't know that I can just get a box office job. That used to be a job you could get. There were plenty of
Well, yeah, I
places
mean,
that
you can
wanted a
still
box
get
office
that job,
manager.
but like, I don't think you can live on that salary. There is
Well,
a
that's the other thing. I lived on $1,000 a month
oh my
out of
God.
college.
Wow.
My rent was $600 a month. So I basically lived on $400
And you should
a
have
month.
seen the apartment. It was like,
Oh, it was a hole in
Amazing.
the wall. It was 10 by 16. The whole apartment was 10 by 16. It was a tiny, tiny apartment, but it was mine.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
had it. It was the first
Okay.
floor in the front. Homeless
Okay.
guys used to come to my window to ask for food. I once
Wow.
gave this guy a
Where
head
is
of
this?
lettuce because that was 100th and West End.
100
I once
West
gave this
End?
guy,
All right.
I literally gave this guy a head of lettuce because I didn't want him to break the window.
Good Mike. Mike's picture where it
what
is.
what a gem.
Wow.
A head of lettuce.
I didn't know what to do. And the guy was like, "Do you have any food?" I was like, "I got a head of lettuce." He's like, "Okay."
Brett, when were you living over on 100 and West End?
1993. 93.
93.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
That was my first
It
apartment, and
started
then
at
I moved
50
to
bucks.
100. Then I moved to 101st, and that was a fourth floor. That was fourth floor walk up. That was a really crazy apartment. Everybody in the building was insane. There was a guy on the first floor who talked to himself. The guy on the floor below me, Paul Auster, the famous writer.
Yeah.
It was his brother.
Wow.
And he was this crazy right wing. I forget what he wrote for. He wrote for like Nazi Monthly. Like he was a real nut. He came up to my apartment one day and he knocked on the door and he said, "You've been walking on the floor at night." I said, "Yeah, I had to get up to pee." He's like, "Well, it woke me up." He said, "It woke me up, and you have to stop doing that." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to stop walking on my floor. I don't know what to tell you."
Yeah. Supposed to
He was out of
levitate
his
to the
mind.
bathroom,
Completely out of
Brett.
his
He
mind.
also had in that apartment, down right at the bottom of the stairs, right there as you're walking out the door, a crazy old cat lady who used to enjoy walking out of her door naked.
Naked. I had a feeling
Truly
that was coming.
wrinkly,
Wow.
old.
Oh.
I was moving in. I was
Or
moving in.
maybe a night, whatever.
Well, maybe.
No
a shawl
pants. No
thing,
pants. I've seen
Oh,
more of that
wow.
woman than I care to see. She when I moved in, she ran up and she said, "Illinois or Wisconsin?" And I said, "New York, New York." And she said, "Yeah, right." And just ran away. It was
Like
great.
Brett's underneath neighbor, she didn't want you to use the stairs. If you were walking up and down the stairs, she was very concerned that nobody should be, make walking up and down too
Right.
loudly.
I couldn't get my
So
phone
she gave
fixed.
us a show.
The phone wires were in her backyard, so for some reason, and she wouldn't let anyone into the apartment. So I lived there for like 2 years with a really wonky phone.
Wow.
Because and this is pre-cell phone, so it was the only phone I had,
Fuck.
and she wouldn't let anyone in to fix it. So we just had this fucked up phone for 2 years.
I mean,
there was nothing
that
anyone
is
could
a
do.
fucking New York story, man.
It was
It
so
really,
New
Upper
York.
West
It was
Side
so New York.
particularly.
Yeah.
It was batshit. The building's still there. I mean, it hasn't been
Of course
knocked
it is.
down. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Hilarious.
she's dead. I know she's dead because a friend of mine moved in after me, and she died, and they turned it into this like gorgeous garden apartment.
Sort of like
But-
in, what was the movie with Robert Redford, Barefoot in the Park, and
Barefoot in the
Jane
Park.
Fonda, right? All the wacky neighbors.
Oh yeah.
It's a thing. It's definitely a
Definitely.
thing.
It's definitely a thing.
Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Who did I do that scene with? Michelle Cantor,
You
right?
did that.
Oh
scene
my
with
God, I
Michelle
remember
Cantor.
that. I totally
Yeah.
remember that.
Where you played the telephone man.
Fucking hell.
That guy, that's a famous actor that played it in the movie.
Yes, Herb
Who is it?
Edelman.
Yes, correct.
Herb Edelman.
I like that movie.
He is a hey, it's that guy. Hey, it's that
Yes.
guy.
He is very much
I
that
used to
kind
run
of
up
guy.
and well, you probably remember I ran up and down the steps like an idiot.
I remember.
I do
Yeah.
So
remember
that
that.
when you
I do
walked
remember
in,
that.
you would be winded like you walked up 5 or 6 flight of stairs or whatever
Yeah.
it's supposed to be in the play. Right.
Why didn't you
I don't
just
know the like
try
an idiot. That's
acting?
a yeah, exactly.
Now we know you don't need to run up and down the stairs. You could just like do some push-ups.
Can actually act.
Right. You could run in place for a minute and then be like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go now.
Uh-huh.
Ugh.
The circuitous way that we used to get to things is, I mean, for me, I should just talk for myself. This boggles my mind sometimes. There's such easier ways. What were we doing?
Well, we were doing what we were told a little bit
Well, yeah,
was that, you know,
that's
that
what I mean. Like,
you
what were
know,
you doing with us?
that was, you know, that was the story. I mean, listen, there's no question that it was pro acting training. I mean, you know, there's no doubt about that. Is that we walked away from there as I went to Carnegie Mellon, and I think I'd said it somewhere. I left because they were. It was like it was. First of all,
Yeah.
I didn't love it there. It was annoying. And I definitely thought that they thought that they were hot shit, and
Yeah.
I thought you guys are doing shit that we did already in high school. You know that they
And
were, and in fairness, they were. You know that by the time we got to high school, that was a
Mhm.
university level drama program that we were in. So suddenly you got out there, and I suspect that happened for a lot of kids. That it was sort of like, ugh, you know, that now you're out there, you're doing it again.
Mike, how was your first year at college in acting?
Where did you go, Mike?
Well, it took me like 3 schools to get through undergrad because I kept dropping out.
Really?
And I didn't go to college right out of high school. I took a
Yeah,
gap
we
year.
took time off.
I took a gap year after we graduated because I didn't really have a strong inclination to go to college
Yeah.
at the beginning. But once we were all out and out of high school and out in the world, I was trying to stay in touch with a lot of people. And I wound up a year after graduation going to Rutgers, Mason Gross School of the Arts.
Hmm.
There were a bunch of people from LaGuardia who were there.
Who was there at the
Ju-
time? Refresh my memory.
so Ariella was there, I
Ariella,
think,
of course.
and
Dave
Michelle
Cowell, right?
Cantor,
Cantor
and
too.
I think he was, and Cleo was there,
I remember
and
Michelle not being happy to see me.
I I don't recall, but
We'll have to ask her. Get her on.
because
What's the
my
beef?
memory, shit. But they all told me great things about Rutgers and how much they were enjoying it, and I said, okay, well, I trust all of them. I will go there, and I auditioned and I got in. Um, and what I didn't realize is that first 2 years of the program at Rutgers, they have a cut system. So like by the time I showed up, like 2 of our 4 LaGuardia friends had been cut after the
Ooh.
first year because they didn't make the grade.
Who got cut?
Based
Who
on
got cut?
I don't remember.
I suspect they didn't show up as what probably happened. It was
I don't remember.
I doubt they got cut because they couldn't act.
I don't remember. But I had a similar feeling. But because I went a year later, I still wound up in acting class at Rutgers with a fellow LaGuardian.
I'm sure, yeah.
Barrow Davis was in my acting
Barrow?
class
Get the hell
at
out of
Rutgers.
here.
Yeah.
Why don't I remember this?
So yeah, I kind of had the same feeling where like I showed up and I was like, okay, let's do this. And they started running us through the Meisner training, which,
Right.
some parts of it was like stuff I hadn't done before, but like the entire first semester, all we did was technique exercises. And I was like, when are we going to get to the acting? Because like, that's what I'm paying money for.
Yeah.
That's why I came here. I want to do the acting. And they're like, well, you got to do this first. And I was like, I had a big head. I thought I was a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, let's do the acting. And when we, I lightened up a little bit when we finally got to the scene work. But part of the experience at Rutgers for me was I lived in the dorm, and I met a lot of cool people there. But like for a lot of people I met there, it was their first time living on their own. And creating like their own rules and their own zone and their own space. And I had kind of done that already. So like I already kind of knew how to set that up, and I didn't want to like party and go wild as much as everybody else. Like I went there to do actor training and like
Yeah.
try
And you
and
knew you
do
were
well
paying 'em.
enough in school, and I was, we were paying for it, and I was trying to be a little more, I felt, disciplined than some of the other people in my dorm. When they're playing Frisbee in the hall outside my door at 3 in the morning, I'm just like, I turned into a 50-year-old man. I was like, "Why can't you kids just go to fucking sleep already? I'm trying to sleep in here,
Uh,
'cause I gotta get up and go to class in the morning."
yeah.
I turned a little bit into that guy. Um, but yeah, there was a little bit of, been there, done that. And I left after a year because I didn't like the Meisner training.
No, huh?
I
It
hated
obviously
Meisner.
works for a lot of people, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say anything bad about it. It's clearly like a proven thing that works for a lot of people, but it wasn't my
This
thing.
wasn't your
Can I
bag.
say something bad about it? Is that okay?
Certainly.
Oh, sure, man.
I hated it. I did it. I never did a full course of it, but I went in college between junior and senior year. This is a very pretentious sentence. I studied acting in Oxford, with the British American Drama Academy.
Oh,
Yunjin
shit.
was there. Yunjin was there, which was totally random.
Oh,
We
wow.
did a scene. We did a scene
Get the
together. It
fuck
was
out of
really
here.
fun. Yeah, yeah. It was completely. I
No
was
shit.
like, oh my god, Yunjin. She's like, oh my god, Brett. She was super nice. Um, we did a
Are you
scene from a
kidding me?
Howard Barker play. Yeah, no, no,
Amazing.
no. It just happened. It just happened. It was
Holy
Shakespeare and
shit.
Chekhov intensive. It was fantastic. We had Shakespeare professors from the
Fuck that.
RSC. Prunella Scales did a seminar on sonnets.
Wow.
Derek Jacobi did one. A lot of big name.
Incredible.
The year before Kenneth Branagh had been there. He wasn't there when I was there. But they got good people, and the head of Yale School of Drama taught the Chekhov class, and it was amazing. I mean, it was
I know.
really, really good. He had throat cancer, so he did something that's the greatest affectation for a teacher, except it was real. Chekhov is not boring. You make Chekhov boring. So he's talking through one of those little speakers. It was great.
Oh my god.
But we had a Meisner class, and the repetition exercise, I was like, yeah, this is like little kids saying, stop repeating yourself, stop repeating yourself, stop repeating yourself. The teacher was not amused. She was
I
not
will say,
happy.
I will say one
Um,
thing about the Meisner training that I still think about. Is the whole exercise called the independent activity.
oh, I don't know
Um,
that one. What is
did
that?
you do that one? It's
I did not.
basically where they teach you how to like talk and chew gum at the same time. That's how I explain it. And you have the independent activity is you have to do something physically that is not related to like your emotional state. So like you might be having like an incredible fight with, your spouse or your partner,
But
but
you're
you still have to get the laundry folded or you got to get the dishes done. So you
yeah.
have to do the independent physical activity while you're engaged in this other thing. And
Yeah.
it turns out like, the first couple times it's enormously difficult to do because everyone wants to just like go in and focus on one thing and not on the other thing. And the point is to like try and stay really present and engaged with both things. And
Mm.
I tell you, man, I can always now, whenever I'm watching a movie or a TV show, I can always see who can do that well and
Pick
who
out
can't.
the
Interesting.
Meisner
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
not.
The
That
only
sounds
thing is, though,
valuable.
is just in defense of Mike and myself, both of whom went to programs and said, "Who are these fucking morons doing what we've done?" This podcast has documentably proven that Jerome Escow yelled at Eddie Sambucci at the time, Mr.
He didn't
Sambucci
yell.
Garcia.
He didn't yell.
I know he didn't yell, but that was probably the first semester of our freshman year.
Yep.
And that was exactly what he was talking about. And by the way, I think he even referred to it as an independent action, now that you're saying.
That sounds about right.
So
Yeah.
when you thought to yourself, Mike,
Yeah.
what the fuck am I doing with these idiots? You're right. You were right.
Because you
You're
did
right.
it fucking 6 years
You were
before
right.
that.
Well,
You were right.
several years later, I eventually went to NYU for undergrad acting, and I finished up there, and that was fantastic because I had I briefly dated a young lady who was in the program there, and she was about to graduate. And I saw a couple things that she and her friends were in there, and I was like, holy shit, these
Right. Well,
people are.
NYU is like production, production, production. That's what you wanted. I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean,
I
that's what
mean,
I was looking for,
right.
was to
I mean,
come and do shows and work a lot.
well, that was the thing.
You
I
know?
went and saw the shows that she was in with
Right.
her classmates. I'm like, yo, these people have some moves I have not seen
Right.
before, and I want to learn what
Yeah.
they're learning. So I went
Mm,
there and I learned what they learned, and it was fucking terrific.
mm.
All right. Well, Rutgers, no. NYU, yes. All right.
Uh,
No offense. No
uh,
offense. No
I
offense.
took I
Mike
took
said
2 years
it.
off. I took 2 years off after high school before going to college. I also auditioned for NYU and get into the Stella Adler Conservatory, and I lasted all but 3 months before quitting because I felt that they were idiots and I was above them. So yes, another similar experience.
That's all right. But I think I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm serious. I think that we were. And I think in fairness, and this is part of the problem of acting in college or whatever it is we literally did it in high school. That it isn't even, of course we did. What did you think they were teaching us?
Exactly.
It was a theater program that intensive. They had to run real programs. What would they have looked at? They'd have looked at college programs. And
That's it.
so, so that had, that's how that worked.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is that it wasn't, neither of you, for all your years in between, didn't really get your foothold on working. That I would
Oh,
imagine, like, I don't know what Kirk did or Omar Epps, but I suspect they didn't go to college.
Kirk
Omar
went
Epps was working.
I don't know
Kirk
if he
went to college.
graduated, but Kirk went to New Paltz.
He
Did
went
he?
to SUNY Purchase.
Oh, Purchase.
He went to the program at SUNY Purchase.
Well,
Yeah,
he
he was
wasn't, and I don't. We don't have to talk about his career, but let's say Omar Epps, because Omar had done Juice by the
yeah.
time and Marlon Wayans. I don't know. I've always wanted to know. There was a commercial that I think Marlon was in, but I'm not sure that it was him because I just don't know if it was him or not.
Huh.
Prior to him being an actor, now did he go to? He went to Purchase. Maybe did Marlon go to Purchase?
No, Marlon.
I don't remember.
If he
idea.
went, he didn't
But there were
last.
kids who went. There were kids who sensibly left high school and started auditioning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm curious, we'll have to do a straw poll on that. I'm curious how things worked out for them.
Do you remember?
Well, I mean,
do you
that's
remember Marlon saying, "I'm not going to join in Living Color"?
Yes.
And
Yes, I do.
I distinctly remember saying to him, "You're an idiot."
Wait, he said he wasn't going to join?
He said, "I'm
Wow.
not going on that show. I'm not going to join my brothers." And I said, "Why would you not do that?" I said, "That's so
Really?
stupid." And
Huh.
there was about 6 months when he wasn't on the show, and then suddenly he was on the show.
Then he was on Wayne's Brothers, which couldn't be the
Oh,
biggest cash in ever. They were the Wayne's Brothers. But Marlon had chops. I knew he did.
He did.
And I said to people for years, I said, this guy is going to one of these days get out of that and he's going to start acting in movie acting and people are going to be stunned that this guy is as good as he is. And he got Oscar consideration. I don't know, he got nominated for
yeah.
the Aretha Franklin film. And I don't know if
Oh,
I'm
he
right,
was good in that.
oh, he was terrific, but he was
good
also
in that.
acting. He was an actor. He wasn't
Yeah.
Marlon Wayans. He was an actor. He did a commercial. I'm pretty sure it was him for, I think it was United Negro College Fund or something like that, in either in high school or in the
Yep.
early years out of college. It was one, you've seen it, and I'm not 100% sure it was him, but it looked like him. Where the guy was like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" He's like, "Oh, now that you've graduated, what are you gonna do?" He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a sandwich." And the teachers were like, "Oh, what are you going to do, now that you've graduated?" He's like, "I think I'm going to brush my teeth." And everybody was like, "Oh, how you're so funny. I love you. You're so great." And then at the end of the commercial, it sort of comes out that he can't afford to go to school. And so, he doesn't know what he's going to do. It was a very powerful commercial.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, my God,
1990.
yeah,
I just found it.
see,
Amazing.
the internet.
You're
it's a
our
very-
internet sleuth, Ed.
Yeah. It really was. It was a very powerful commercial and he was great. And you could see, you were like, my God. And it was it was an acting job. It was not it was acting. And it was,
mean-
and at the end it was powerful. He didn't go to college.
Brett, Dan, whichever one of you just said the thing about people going out of high school and just like starting to audition like right away. I
Yeah.
did that a little bit right after high school, but like I wasn't doing it in New York or LA. I was doing it
Yeah.
in,
North Carolina.
North Carolina with the film industry down there, and which, suited my purposes at the time. But like, there was no one there under any illusions that they were going to have like a New York or LA level career
Mm.
in North Carolina, unless you were a crew member. If you were a crew member, if you were a grip or a sound person or a
Yeah.
camera person or a wardrobe person, yeah, for a while you could probably have a New York or LA type career there. But the actors, not so much, even though there were a lot of good actors there.
And that's it, guys. Time's up.
Oh my God. We
Go
did it again.
Knicks.
Let's go Knicks.
Let's
Go
get
Knicks.
this done. We'll see you all next week.
Let's go Knicks.